The origin of the name Creek is uncertain. The tradition is that it was given by white people from the number of creeks and watercourses in the country. The Indian name is Muscogee. The creeks came from the west. They have a tradition among them that there is, in the fork of Red River, west of the Mississippi, 2 mounds of earth, that at this place the Cossettas, Conatas, and Chickasaws found themselves, that being distressed by wars with red people, they crossed the Mississippi, and directing their course eastwardly, they crossed the falls of Tallapoosa, above Tookabouchee, settled below the falls of Chattahoochee, and spread out from thence to Ocmulgee, Oconee, Savannah, and down the seacoast towards Charleston. Here they first saw white people, and from hence they have been compelled to retire back again to their present settlements. Benjamin Hawkins.
By the 17th century, the Creek Indians of Georgia and Alabama had become the largest and most powerful Indian group in the southeastern United States. They dominated a vast area, numbering some 20,000, arranged in about over 50 towns. They were primarily farmers and hunters. They raised crops of corn, squash, and beans along the fertile river lands, and hunted deer, turkey, other animals. They fished, and they gathered wild forest products. It was a very, very prosperous economy, enabling them to support their dense populations.
We have a situation of changing society in the Creek country, a more diverse condition over time. Even 100 years earlier, the Creeks were already diverse in that the main core towns of the Creek Confederacy spoke 2 different languages, Muscogee and Hitchiti. Soon after that, the Creek Confederacy began accepting refugees to build their numbers, and these refugees came from various places. They spoke various languages, and they had a number of different ethnicities with different customs. There were Uchis and Shawnees coming from the north and east. There were Natchez coming from the west. There were Chickasaws among the Creeks in those days. So a growing ethnic mix, a growing linguistic mix, all sort of disorienting.
And so none of the tribal towns had any need or reason to be above the other or being a preeminent above another. They were all equal in that sense. And they organized loosely on this confederacy that was labeled put on us because we had a similar culture and traditions that bound us and as a group, as a larger, loosely connected group, likened to what the archaeologists say is the Mississippian culture, so to speak, or the Southeastern cult complex, or any of those sort of terms. It was all based on that idea of the tribal town being preeminent and having all of these certain rituals. And these rituals were very, very similar among each of the towns, but slightly different in each town, which made them unique in each town and made each town unique. So it's that idea or that type of mechanism that the United States and France and Spain all had troubles with. They always wanted to meet with one person or one group, and they couldn't get that with the Muscogee Creek, the Confederacy.
The thing that interests me most about the Creek War is that it was a civil war. And it was a war that took the form of a religious revitalization movement. And so this was a war that had aspects of religious visions and prophets and a religious interpretation of natural events that were some of the main drivers of what happened. And we can trace some of this back to the year 1811, a couple of years before the war started, when a number of Shawnee prophets were visiting the South, and they visited the Creeks at that time. Those Shawnee prophets came with Tecumseh, and what Tecumseh was doing, he was a great war leader among the Northern Indians, was trying to persuade the Southern Indians to join him in a pan-Indian movement to push out the whites. He wasn't very successful in the South, but he found a listening audience at the town of Tukabatchee in the Creek country. And it's the presence of those Shawnee prophets there at that time in 1811 that had a large influence on the Creeks.
Wajinagalge pasadege subije begas. Higana pazasage, hoktage humbira hayalge, holwezage ros. Simajolge taman lomhat, ok yagabage dundun. Taman yeza ok full jezaks. Shari nini in hayat. Istijari hunida batsa, abogat. Nini shari, hubanaget hayaget. Undun, tastinogalge hokkola. Tubala abogat. Istoboskade, humakahani dundos. Amin legera ok full kahanu west. Kisalge, chin lega kahanit, umates. Wajinage, infli, shimadatskaget, naskaba wheatlagates. Wajinage, shijokado, higana hawak lay, no milgates. Sasakpa, mayat Shinip kejit, oh my of, sura halwe, totka, awilipket, hijaktasis. Typical Newman alhet, chali, takpat tejayo, higan and negiatis.
To symbolically and figuratively raise the red stick of war was a very powerful statement. And in the early part of the 19th century, a part of the Creek Nation did raise the red stick of war against their own people. The red stick itself has been posited, what was it? Maybe it was introduced by Northern Indians. Maybe a red stick is simply a way of keeping time until, the number of days before you go to battle. But a red stick was a weapon, a very powerful, symbolic, and real weapon that was employed. And the main reason that a part of the Creek people went to war against their own National Council was because of disagreements over how the National Council had handled demands by Americans. Following a series of murders, including a home invasion in the Duck River in Tennessee, of murders and robberies on the Federal Road, Americans were determined to make Creeks pay. And through the agent, Benjamin Hawkins, the Creek National Council was told that if they did not turn these individuals over to the United States for punishment, then that would be seen as an act of war. In fact, those murders and robberies were viewed by Americans not as acts of individual Creeks, but as an act of war by the entire nation against America.